A woman in modest workout clothes entered an elite gym where muscle-bound men dominated every machine. They laughed at her form, mocked her weights, called her weak. Then someone asked what she did for a living, and her answer didn't just silence the room. It shattered every assumption they'd made about strength, power, and what a warrior actually looks like. Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who never need to prove it. And sometimes, the loudest voices belong to those who've never truly been tested. The afternoon sun filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows at Apex Performance Gym, casting long shadows across rubber mats and chrome weight racks, where serious lifters gathered to worship at the altar of physical supremacy. This wasn't a casual fitness center with juice bars and yoga classes. This was a temple for the devoted, where grunts echoed off concrete walls and heavy metal pounded from speakers mounted in industrial ceiling fixtures. The membership cost $500 a month. The attitude cost nothing but came standard with every locker assignment. Sarah Mitchell pushed through the heavy front door carrying a simple canvas gym bag, her frame slight compared to the massive bodies moving weights around the space. She wore plain black leggings, a faded gray tank top, and minimalist training shoes that had clearly seen better days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. No makeup, no jewelry, no expensive athleisure brands screaming for attention. She looked like someone who'd wandered into the wrong gym. The man at the front desk, a mountain of muscle named Derek who took his role as gatekeeper seriously, looked up from his phone with barely concealed skepticism. "Help you? This is a members-only facility." "I'm a member," Sarah replied quietly, pulling out her keycard. Transferred from the location across town, Derek scanned her card, his expression suggesting he expected it to be declined. The system beeped approval. He handed it back with obvious reluctance. "Locker rooms to the left. Try not to get in anyone's way during their sets. We run a serious operation here." "Understood," Sarah said, her tone neutral. She'd encountered this attitude before, would encounter it again. It no longer surprised or bothered her. Near the squat rack, 3 men in their late 20s spotted her entrance. They fit the gym bro archetype perfectly. Tank tops showcasing impressive physiques built through countless hours of dedicated training and careful supplementation. Tribal tattoos snaking across shoulders. Protein shaker bottles perpetually in hand. The kind of men who measured their worth in bench press numbers and saw the gym as their domain. The loudest of the 3, a guy named Chad who'd placed 3rd in a regional bodybuilding competition and wouldn't let anyone forget it, nudged his companions. "Oh man, check it out. We got fresh meat." His friend Marcus, nearly as large and half as bright, followed Chad's gaze. "Girl looks lost. Somebody's girlfriend probably dragged her here." The 3rd, Tyler, who prided himself on being slightly more evolved than his friends while still enjoying the pack mentality, shook his head. "Give her 10 minutes on a treadmill before she gives up and hits the smoothie place next door." They watched as Sarah made her way to the women's locker room, her movements economical and purposeful. Nothing about her suggested she was intimidated by the atmosphere, but nothing about her suggested she belonged either. She was simply there, occupying space in their territory. Sarah changed quickly and emerged to begin her workout. She started with a warm-up routine that looked almost gentle. Dynamic stretches, mobility work, bodyweight movements performed with quiet focus. No earbuds, no checking her phone, just attention to her own preparation. At the pull-up bar, she began a set. Her form was impeccable, controlled motion, with no kipping or momentum. She moved through 20 repetitions, with the same steady rhythm, then dropped down and moved to the next exercise. Chad noticed from across the gym. He wandered over with his entourage, ostensibly to use nearby equipment, but really to establish dominance in the way gym bros do when they feel their territory threatened by unfamiliar presence. 20 pull-ups, huh? Chad said loudly enough for others to hear. "That's cute." Sarah didn't respond, just moved to a kettlebell and began a complex. "Good form, though," Marcus added with exaggerated generosity. "For a girl. You probably do CrossFit or something." Tyler positioned himself at a machine that gave him a clear view. Most women stick to cardio and light weights. Smart to know your limitations. Sarah completed her kettlebell set, returned the weight to its rack, and moved to the deadlift platform. This was prime real estate in the gym, the space where serious lifters proved themselves. She began loading the bar with plates, 45s on each side, then another set. The men exchanged glances. "Whoa, hold up," Chad said, stepping closer. "You sure you can handle that weight? Don't want you hurting yourself." Sarah straightened and looked at him directly for the first time. Her eyes were calm, almost neutral, with something underneath that was hard to identify. Confidence, maybe? Or the particular stillness that comes from having nothing to prove. "I'll be fine," she said simply. Marcus laughed. "That's like 225. No offense, but that's a man's weight." Sarah positioned herself at the bar, feet shoulder-width apart, hands gripping with practiced placement. "Maybe you should start lighter," Tyler offered, his tone dripping with false concern. "Work your way up. Pride's not worth a herniated disc." Sarah took a breath, braced her core, and lifted. The bar came off the ground smooth and controlled. No hitching or struggle. She stood fully, held for a beat, then lowered the weight with the same control. Reset. Lifted again. She completed 5 repetitions, each one technically perfect, then racked the weight and stepped back. The 3 men stared. "That's actually pretty good," Chad admitted reluctantly, "for someone your size. You compete or something?" "No," Sarah said, moving to add more weight to the bar. Marcus's eyes widened. "You're going heavier?" "Look, I've been lifting for 8 years, Chad said, his friendly mask slipping slightly to reveal irritation. "I know you probably feel like you need to prove something, being a woman in a place like this, but there's no shame in knowing your limits. Pushing too hard is how people get hurt." "I know my limits," Sarah replied, loading another pair of 45s. "This isn't them." Tyler whistled low. "That's 315. I don't think I've ever seen a woman pull 315. "You're gonna wreck yourself," Marcus warned, "and then Derek's gonna have to fill out incident reports, and the owner's gonna be pissed." Sarah ignored them, positioned herself at the bar again, and executed the lift. 315 pounds came off the ground like it was 215. She completed 3 reps, controlled and strong, then set the bar down gently despite the weight. When she stood up and stepped back, the immediate area had gone quiet. Other gym members had noticed. A woman lifting more than most of the men in the facility tended to draw attention. Chad's face had gone from amused condescension to something harder. His entire identity was wrapped up in being strong, being dominant in this space. Watching someone he'd dismissed as weak outperform him created cognitive dissonance that manifested as anger. "Okay, cool party trick," he said, voice tight. "You've obviously been training. But real strength isn't just about pulling weight off the ground. It's about total fitness, endurance, explosiveness, mental toughness. Most women don't have that kind of complete package." Sarah took a drink from her water bottle. "If you say so? If I say so?" Chad's volume increased. "I've been doing this my whole life. I know what I'm talking about. You can lift heavy? Great. But I guarantee if we did a real test, something comprehensive, you wouldn't last." The gym had definitely noticed now. Conversations paused. People pretended to stretch while watching the confrontation unfold. This was entertainment, drama breaking up the monotony of their training routines. "What kind of test?" Sarah asked, her tone still neutral. Chad was committed now, his ego demanding victory. "Anything. Pick an exercise. Hell, pick 5 exercises. We'll do a circuit. Loser has to admit they were wrong about who's actually strong here." Sarah studied him for a long moment. The challenge was juvenile. Exactly the kind of posturing she'd spent years moving beyond. But something in Chad's aggressive certainty, in the way he and his friends had spent the past 30 minutes trying to make her feel small, made her tired. Not physically tired, tired of this particular flavor of arrogance. "Okay," she said simply. Chad grinned, scenting victory. Marcus and Tyler moved closer, excited by the prospect of watching their friend dominate. "Yeah? What are we doing?" Sarah set down her water bottle. "Your choice. You're the expert. Design the test." Chad's mind raced through options, calculating exercises where his size and strength would provide maximum advantage. "Burpees," he decided. then pull-ups, then a sprint on the assault bike, then kettlebell snatches. Then we finish with wall balls. First person to quit loses. Sarah nodded. Sounds fair. What's the representative scheme? We'll do it for time, Chad said. 5 minutes each exercise. Most reps wins that round. Best 3 out of 5 takes it, and when I win, you admit that you wandered into a gym way out of your league. When you win, Sarah agreed. And if I win? Chad laughed. If you win, which you won't, I'll admit that. He paused, searching for something sufficiently humiliating. I'll admit that you're stronger than me. Derek had appeared, drawn by the commotion. What's going on here? We're having a friendly competition, Chad announced. Testing who's got real fitness. Derek looked between them, clearly seeing the dynamic. Seemed like a bad idea that would somehow become his problem. Maybe we should. I'll get a timer, Sarah said. Unless you want to back out. Chad's jaw set. No backing out. Let's do this. They moved to an open space where other members quickly formed a loose circle. Phones out to record what promised to be either an impressive display or an embarrassing disaster. Sarah and Chad faced each other. Derek held his phone with a timer app open, looking like he regretted every decision that led to this moment. First exercise. Burpees. 5 minutes. He started the timer. Chad exploded into movement, his muscular frame slamming through burpees with the aggressive energy of someone proving a point. He was strong, well-conditioned, moving fast. Impressive by any standard. Sarah matched his pace exactly. Her movements were more efficient, less wasted motion, but she hit every representative with full extension. No shortcuts. As the minutes ticked by, Chad's pace began to falter. The weight he carried, all that muscle he'd built to look impressive, became a liability in a bodyweight conditioning exercise. He was still moving, but slower. Sarah's pace never changed. Same rhythm at 4 minutes as at 30 seconds. When the timer hit 5 minutes, Derek called time. Chad had completed 78 burpees. Sarah had completed 92. Chad bent over, hands on knees, breathing hard. That's 1, he gasped. Still got 4 more. 1 minute rest, then pull-ups, Derek announced. The crowd murmured. A few people started checking Sarah out more carefully, trying to figure out who she was. During the rest period, Marcus leaned close to Chad. Dude, she's for real. Maybe we should. We're not backing down, Chad hissed. I just need to pace better. The pull-up round began. This was supposed to be Chad's strong suit. He'd worked his back obsessively, could perform impressive numbers. He started strong, banging out reps with determination. Sarah's pull-ups were technically perfect. Full dead hang, chin clearing the bar, controlled descent. She moved like a machine, efficient and relentless. At 3 minutes, Chad slowed significantly. His grip was failing, his form deteriorating into partial reps and kipping. Sarah's form never changed. When time was called, Chad had managed 41 pull-ups. Sarah had completed 76. The watching crowd was no longer amused. They were impressed. Whispers circulated trying to identify this unassuming woman who was systematically dismantling one of the gym's most vocal alpha males. Chad's face was flushed, partially from exertion but mostly from humiliation. Tyler tried to intervene. Hey man, this is getting rough. Maybe we finish, Chad snapped. The assault bike round was brutal. The machine was designed to punish, requiring both leg drive and arm push, in a combination that broke even elite athletes. Chad threw everything into it, his pride demanding he win at least 1 round. But Sarah was relentless. Her breathing was controlled, her pace steady. She treated the bike like something to be endured rather than fought, maintaining output that never spiked or dropped. When 5 minutes ended, Chad had accumulated 1,200 calories. Sarah had 1,350. By the kettlebell snatch round, Chad was visibly struggling. The crowd had grown. Someone had texted friends. People were coming from other parts of the gym, drawn by word that something extraordinary was happening. Chad completed his snatches with deteriorating form, muscling through on determination rather than technique. Sarah's snatches were textbook perfect, efficient transfer of force, smooth rhythm. The gap widened. Final round. Wall balls. Chad could barely grip the medicine ball, his shoulders burned, his legs trembled. He gave everything he had left, throwing the ball with desperate intensity, but his body was done. Sarah kept the same steady pace she'd maintained through all 5 exercises. When time was called, the outcome was undeniable. Chad collapsed against a wall, chest heaving, face buried in his hands. The gym had gone completely silent. Sarah walked over and extended her hand. Good effort. Chad looked up at her, something broken behind his eyes. What are you? Sarah's expression didn't change. Just someone who works out. No, Marcus said, stepping forward. Nobody trains like that casually. What do you do? For a living? Sarah hesitated. This was the moment she'd been avoiding. The moment when everything shifted. The moment when people stopped seeing her as a person and started seeing her as a symbol or a threat or a curiosity. Navy, she said simply. The silence deepened. Navy? Tyler asked. Active duty? Sarah nodded. What do you do in the Navy? Chad asked, his voice barely above a whisper, some part of him already knowing the answer and dreading it. Special warfare operator, Sarah replied. The words landed like a depth charge. Navy SEAL. Someone in the crowd breathed. She's a fucking SEAL. The revelation rippled through the watching crowd. Phones that had been recording came down. The energy in the room transformed from entertainment to something approaching awe. Chad stared at her. You're a SEAL. Sarah's expression remained neutral. I'm transitioning out after 10 years. Holy shit, Marcus whispered. How long have you been? I graduated BUD/S 9 years ago, Sarah said. She didn't mention the Hell Week, that only 20% of candidates survived. Didn't mention the years of combat deployments, the missions she couldn't discuss, the training that made this gym workout feel like gentle stretching. Didn't mention that she'd earned her trident in one of the most demanding military pipelines in the world, that she'd operated in conditions that would break most people, that strength for her wasn't about gym lifts or representative counts, but about functioning under pressure that transcended anything these men had experienced. You let us, Chad began, then stopped. Let us talk shit about you being weak. Sarah shrugged. You were having fun. Didn't seem worth correcting. But you destroyed me, Chad said. The humiliation complete now. Made me look like a fool. You challenged me, Sarah replied. I accepted. That was your choice. The crowd began to disperse. Whispers and sideways glances replacing the earlier entertainment. This story would spread through the gym's social network within hours. Become legend within days. The woman who'd quietly endured mockery before revealing she was exponentially more capable than any of them. Derek approached cautiously. I apologize for earlier. A comment about not getting in anyone's way. That was inappropriate. Sarah nodded acceptance. Chad remained against the wall, processing. Finally, he stood. Approached Sarah directly. I'm sorry. For everything. The comments, the attitude, the everything. Sarah finished. I know. Chad's friends had gone quiet. Their earlier bravado evaporated. They suddenly looked very young and very foolish. Can I ask? Chad hesitated. Why didn't you say something right away? Why let us talk to you like that? Sarah considered the question. Because people who need to announce what they are usually aren't that impressive. And because I was here to work out, not to win some dominance contest with strangers. She picked up her water bottle. But you pushed, and I responded. That's on you, not me. She started to walk away, then paused. Real strength isn't about how much you can lift, or how loud you can announce your capabilities. It's about what you can endure when nobody's watching. It's about getting up every day and doing hard things because they need doing, not because someone's keeping score. You three are strong. You've clearly worked hard on your bodies, but maybe work on the other stuff too. The part that doesn't show in mirrors. With that, she returned to her training, moving through exercises with the same quiet focus she'd shown before the confrontation. The gym slowly returned to normal function, but nothing felt quite the same. Over the following weeks, the dynamic at Apex Performance shifted in subtle ways. Chad and his friends were notably quieter. They trained hard but without the performative arrogance that had defined them before. When new members entered the gym, particularly women, Chad was among the first to welcome them and offered genuine assistance. Word of Sarah's background spread, despite her efforts to remain low profile. People approached her constantly for advice, stories, training tips. She was polite but firm about boundaries, making clear she was there to work out, not to be a spectacle or inspiration. One morning, about a month after the incident, Chad approached her during a water break. "I've been thinking about what you said. About real strength." He paused, clearly uncomfortable. "I joined the Army Reserves. Start basic training next month." Sarah studied him. "That's a big decision." Chad nodded. "I realized I'd been calling myself strong, but I'd never actually tested it." "Not really. This gym stuff, it's just games. Playing soldier. I want to know if I can handle the real thing." "That's admirable," Sarah said. "But understand that serving isn't about proving you're tough. It's about being part of something larger than yourself." "I know," Chad said. "Or, I'm learning. Thanks for the wake-up call." Even if it was humiliating, Sarah's expression softened slightly. The best lessons usually are. As spring turned to summer, Sarah completed her transition out of the Navy and into civilian life. The adjustment was harder than the physical training had ever been. In the military, she'd had purpose, structure, a team. In civilian life, everything felt loose and undefined. The gym became her anchor point, a place where physical discipline provided some sense of order. She began noticing other veterans training there. They recognized each other without words. Some shared understanding in how they approached the work. One was a former Marine who'd lost his leg in combat and now trained with a prosthetic. Another was an Army veteran dealing with PTSD who said the routine of daily workouts kept him grounded. They formed an informal group, not organized or official, just people who understood each other's language. Derek approached her one afternoon with a proposal. "I've been talking to the owner. We want to start a veterans program. Free memberships for anyone who served. Training groups, community building." He hesitated. "We were hoping you might help organize it." "Why me?" Sarah asked. "Because you're you," Derek said simply. "Because people respect you, and because you clearly understand what this community needs." Sarah agreed. Within 2 months, the program had 20 veteran members. The gym's culture continued to evolve. The toxic displays of dominance diminished. People trained hard but with mutual respect. When someone struggled, others offered help instead of mockery. The physical space was the same, but the atmosphere had transformed into something healthier. One evening, Sarah was approached by a young woman, maybe 22, who'd been a member for a few weeks. "Excuse me," the woman said nervously. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" The woman gestured vaguely. "For being here. For showing that women can be strong without having to fit some specific mold. I've always been athletic, but I avoided gyms because of the atmosphere. Watching how you carry yourself, it helped me feel like I could claim space here too." Sarah felt the familiar discomfort with being treated as a symbol. "I'm just training. You inspired people whether you meant to or not," the woman insisted. "That matters." After she left, Sarah sat quietly, processing. She'd never sought to be a role model or an example. Had actively avoided that burden. But perhaps impact wasn't always something you controlled. Perhaps showing up authentically, refusing to shrink or perform, that alone created ripples you couldn't anticipate. Chad completed basic training and returned to the gym transformed. He'd lost some muscle mass but gained something more valuable. Humility. Perspective. A better understanding of what strength actually meant. He sought Sarah out immediately. "You were right," he said. "About everything. The real stuff is so much harder than anything we do here. Makes all my old posturing seem childish." "You learned," Sarah said. "That's what matters." He trained alongside the veterans group now, listening more than talking, asking questions instead of making pronouncements. His friends Marcus and Tyler followed his example. The trio that had once embodied gym bro arrogance became advocates for inclusive training culture. On the anniversary of her separation from the Navy, Sarah arrived at the gym early, as always. The place was empty, except for Derek preparing for the day's operations. "Morning," he called. "Big day, right? 1 year out?" Sarah nodded, surprised he'd remembered. "How's it feel, honestly?" "Harder than I expected," Sarah admitted. "I thought transitioning would be straightforward." "It hasn't been." Derek leaned against the counter. "For what it's worth, you've built something here. This community. The way people treat each other now. A lot of that comes from your example." "I didn't do anything special," Sarah protested. "You did exactly something special," Derek countered. "You showed up as yourself. Refused to play games or shrink to make insecure people comfortable. That changed everything." As morning light filled the gym and early members began arriving, Sarah moved through her warm-up with the same focused discipline she brought every day. Around her, people trained with mutual respect and genuine encouragement. Veterans and civilians, experienced lifters and beginners, all sharing space without the toxic hierarchies that had once defined this place. She thought about the path that led here. The years of extreme training, the combat deployments, the transition to civilian life, the mockery from gym bros who'd measured her worth by appearance rather than capability. The moment of revelation that shattered their assumptions. But more than that moment, she thought about what came after. The slow building of community. The transformation of culture. The discovery that strength wasn't just about what you could endure, but about what you could create, by refusing to accept diminishment. Chad arrived and joined her section for warm-ups, nodding, greeting, but not interrupting her focus. The respectful distance was something he'd learned. Nearby, the young woman who'd thanked her was coaching a newcomer through proper squat form, paying forward the confidence she'd gained. Derek managed the front desk with genuine welcome rather than gatekeeping skepticism. The gym had become what it should have been all along. A space where people pushed their limits without pushing each other down. Where strength was measured not in mockery or dominance, but in discipline and mutual respect. Where showing up and doing the work mattered more than performing superiority. Sarah completed her warm-up and moved to the deadlift platform. The bar was empty, waiting to be loaded. She began adding weight, the familiar ritual centering her. 245, 265, 315, 365. 415. She stepped to the bar, positioned her hands, took a breath. The weight came off the ground smooth and powerful. Testament to years of training that went far beyond this moment. When she set it down and stepped back, a few people were watching. Not with the mocking curiosity of a year ago, but with genuine respect. She acknowledged them with a brief nod and continued her training. No dramatics. No pronouncements, just a woman doing the work, carrying the quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly what she's capable of and feeling no need to announce it. Because real strength, the kind that matters, never needs to prove itself. It simply is. Consistent, disciplined, present, and sometimes, when the world demands it, willing to teach arrogant gym bros exactly how wrong their assumptions were. What does this story teach you about assumptions and real strength? Have you ever underestimated someone based on appearance? Or been underestimated yourself? Share your experiences in the comments below. If stories about quiet confidence, earned respect, and the transformation of toxic cultures inspire you, consider subscribing for more narratives about people who change spaces simply by refusing to shrink. Let us know where you're watching from today, because sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who never need to prove it. And sometimes, showing up authentically is the most revolutionary act possible.